Wanna-
Welcome to Two Minds Today with your host, Charlene, authority in leadership development, and Haleh, an expert community builder. The pod all about best practices to get you noticed and ahead in your professional life.
Hello.
Hi, Charlene. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Here we are again. This is a bonus episode. We rarely do two in a week.
I know. There's for us, there's holidays coming, long weekend for everybody.
That's right.
Well, not for everybody. We should qualify. For some people, it is a long weekend. But today I'm really excited to dive in. We are talking about how your expectations shape your experience, and all in the frame of the power of framing.
Yeah. So, what do you think about framing? What is framing? Let's define that first.
Oh, that's so good. Okay. I wonder if we define it the same way. I would define framing as like literally you're putting the like corners and edges, like you are framing a subject, you're setting your expectations, you're putting it almost, the opposite of think outside the box. You are creating a box so that people know what's in it and can feel good about it. Well, how would you describe it?
I think I'd agree with that. I think that is what framing is, right? And because I think that people desire comfort. In order for us to be creative thinkers, in order for us to be open to new experiences, we need comfort, right? We need to know what there is, what to expect. And I think that's where framing comes in. When you create a space and you say, go do whatever you want, though it might sound super exciting and adventurous, the truth is that most people are hesitant to walk into a situation where they don't at least have a sense of what's going on. I think it paradoxically helps free your mind to say, okay, this is what's going to happen, and I'm all in for that.
I have definitely heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, so be curious, that it is easier to be creative within parameters. Like when we know the parameters, you can be creative and learn and be like, okay, this is the box this is the edges. This is where I can go. This is what I can do. And it's almost easier for some people to be creative if they feel like I was on a call today where it's like, there is no limit, let's go. And that's harder for people.
And then people just freeze. It reminds me of the old adage of necessity is the mother of invention, right? Because when creativity comes about, when there's a lack and a need for you to be able to think in a different way, right? So, it's interesting. Yeah, I definitely think that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes. So I would say why frame? Well, one, the first thing is you're actually giving people the power to be creative and to think larger when you provide confines. And I think two is really the essence, right? We are setting expectations. You are giving the people like you're allowing people to choose whether to opt in, to opt out, to ask more questions.
Absolutely. And that expectation also gives people the ability to understand whether or not they want to engage and be involved in that particular program that you're putting ahead, in that particular conversation that you're discussing, right? And people need to know what the expectations are. I do wonder, as I'm saying this, Charlene, whether framing was as important many years ago as it is today. Because I think today people very much you need permission to go forward in lots of different ways, right? You text someone to make sure that you can have a phone conversation with them. You check with someone, what are your pronouns? Because you want to make sure that you don't offend. So I think framing creates that space. One, yes, to be creative. And two, to know that this is the space I want to enter. This is the space I'm allowed to enter. You've invited me. I see your invitation. And that's the party I want to attend.
Yeah. I wonder if what you're getting at is like we have more options now, right? So I just wrote an email, invited people to something. It's a virtual program. I assume everyone knows it's on Zoom, right? But someone flagged for me like, hey, you need to write on Zoom. And I was like, you're totally right, right? Because let's say they missed that it was virtual or they're only half reading. And now there's just so many options. You just named 4 options of communication method, right? Is it a text? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Is it a Zoom? Like, is it in person? And that's just the barrier. That's just a modality, right? We don't even know what the content is.
It's so true, right? So we talk about the importance of framing in order to think clearly, but we also just need to frame so that we can actually interact with each other, right? So we know how
Yeah.
to and where that space is.
Yeah, I think that really dovetails into two is how can you frame properly? I think transparency is key in my mind. Anytime we try and like bait and switch, even if we don't mean to be baiting and switching, if somebody feels that they weren't given an authentic experience, that could really backfire. So I think transparency is key.
And I do think that that's a bit generational, by the way.
For
And
sure.
because, this business of transparency, like you didn't have that kind of expectation in the past. People just generally out of society didn't expect to know everything or to have access to knowledge. But today we have so much access to all knowledge that we
Yeah.
expect to have that, to know what it is. We expect that kind of transparency. And as I'm saying it, I would also say that this is very cultural as well,
Hmm.
because there are some cultures that there is such a thing as too much transparency. And there is such a thing as like if you hold your cards, you have a bit of respect in an authority that you relay because not everyone knows exactly what you are saying. But I think in America, people appreciate that transparency. And when you frame properly, you are in essence giving respect to the individuals who
Yeah.
you're inviting into your event, into your program, into your thought circle, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to expectations, right? As a society, have we expected a higher level of transparency? Not even generationally, right? Is it e we are so, and I think we've talked a lot about this, like everyone is in their echo chambers, right? And so our expectations is that everything I do is in my own echo chamber. And when you frame it, you have to, if you're pulling someone out of what they are expecting, that's part of why you have to frame it. So it's you not only like we talked a little bit about modality, like how, when, why, are you doing it, but it's also the are you going to be with people that are like you? Or are you going to be people that are different from you? Are you going to be with, and that could be age, political, anything.
Oh my
It's,
gosh.
yeah,
Now it's getting a little crazy as I'm listening to
I
this
know.
conversation. Okay. So you got to frame it. Not only do you have to frame like uh, what it is, but you're saying it's important how you do it, what you're talking about, who the people are around you. Okay, so now I'm going to push back a little bit, Charlene, and say to you, like, is this just like a little bit too much of, pandering and, or, you ought to be able to handle something without me over framing
Well,
it.
so, okay, I'm going to go to what happens if there's a mismatch. That's our third,
Okay,
right?
let's do that.
Because so let's play out your scenario of I've only given you, hey, meet at 3 o'clock, right? Okay, fine. We already know the modality, how, where, and why is confusing. It's like the let's meet at Starbucks at 3. It's like, okay, which one on which corner? Um, and then let's say we got the location, the modality, all of that is done. And then you jump on a call and you are let's go age, right? You are the youngest person there by 40 years. And you did not know that going in. How do you feel? And I don't mean you because you're always comfortable in every situation, but how would one perhaps feel?
I think that you're right, right? Like people get it, people want to belong, right? And you want to
Yeah.
know that you are where you're supposed to be. And,
Mm.
you know, and it's interesting because today we're all about be yourself and be who you are and be your authentic self. Yet it becomes incredibly important to frame properly so that you know you're where you belong with the other people who are in
Yeah.
that space that you need to be in.
I I agree, and I want to name this is exhausting. It really is.
It is, right?
The level that you have to think about for an engagement, it could be a program, it can be an event, it could be a friend outing. I remember when Andy, my husband and I were like not married and kids, we ended up at a dinner with all kids and we're like, oh, this is the baby party. And like on one hand, it's like we were dating, right? We weren't even at the engaged married side. And on one hand, if someone said like, hey, I just want you to know there's like this is who's coming, we would have walked into it and we would have known. Instead, we walked into it and we were like, whoa, what are we doing here? Like, super nice, the friend invited us, but like, it just felt off.
I'm trying to like think about what you're saying, because I understand what you're saying, and I do think that we need to frame the right way because of that, right? So that you don't have that mismatch. But I also wonder whether it's like, are we going too far with this essentially like the iPhone generation? Like, I want to make sure that I'm fully comfortable. You better frame this the right way, or I'm going to walk in, have a bad experience because I feel like I won't belong, and I'm going to leave and I'm never going to engage again.
Well,
Like, is
I,
that what we're afraid of?
I actually wonder if it's actually not iPhone, it's Starbucks mass customization, right?
Oh,
It's like I am so used to being able to get in a mass produced way exactly what I want, right? I'm going to add 3 pumps or no ice or no water. Which apparently they're going to charge more for if you're a Starbucks drinker and
they're
don't
going to
add
charge you
water.
more for water? Is that what
For
you
no
said?
water.
Oh,
I
for
don't
no
know.
water.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes. My dad
Because
orders
they're
a
putting more
chai tea
product. They're
latte.
putting more
Yeah, yes,
product in it.
exactly.
I can see the economic reasoning for that. All right.
But I think that how I would like circle back this whole thing is, are we getting too micro? Are we getting too, uh, y- yes, maybe. And if your result is that you want people to have a better experience, then these are things you have to think about, right? If you want to do what you want to do when you want to do it, and whoever comes, comes, and it's not a long term engagement, right? You're not trying to engage people over a long period of time and they hate it. Okay, that's fine. I think that the more explaining you do for the other person, the more forgiveness you buy yourself, right? If they said to us, okay, hey, just so you know, there's gonna be like 5 babies at this dinner, we'd been like, okay. And then we chose to go knowing there was gonna be 5 babies at this dinner. And that's on us now, right? Like that's us. And like we maybe would be like, oh, baby Shabbat, that was cute, as opposed to be like, baby Shabbat, why were we invited? Right. And I think Shabbat is a Friday night dinner. Sorry, this is a Friday night dinner experience. And I think the more you do, the more you buy yourself forgiveness.
So
That's what I would say.
essentially, right. So essentially, framing is biz talk for effective communication, right?
Mm,
And why do you frame? Because you want to effectively communicate. How can you frame properly? Like, think about what you need to get done, right? And what happens when there's a mismatch? You're going to be at a baby party when you really don't want to be at a baby party, right? And
yeah.
so, in business, in your professional life, essentially every interaction you have requires proper framing.
Yeah. Thank you, Hila, for always wrapping us all back together. And that's really how your expectations shape your experience and the power of framing.
Well, thanks so much, Charlene. It's really helpful when you have like it all queued out for me, all written down on the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to say that it's like a cooperative effort, right? Like, we are a team, the best that there is out there. So thank
Obviously.
you so much. And for everybody who's tuned in to listen, remember, learn a little bit more every day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Am I butchering